shaving cream. Say with my friends.
On yourself or?
Yeah, on myself and my friends.
Okay, is this a Halloween tradition here in Brooklyn?
Yes, definitely.
But what about this woman with shaving cream on her car?
They're having a good time.
Could have been worse.
Could have been eggs.
Eggs? What are you going to do with eggs?
They're going to throw them at people.
We're gonna cook dinner.
I'm gonna hit this kid over here. See? Extra large grade A.
They put the eggs away because look at this. Down the block, a constable on patrol in the mood to confiscate.
Let me have it.
Come on, please.
Let me have it.
Come on.
He finally did hand it over. As for the rest, they wrapped up their Halloween on the run. New York police say they will be out in force to make sure no one violates the spirit of Halloween or the law. Will Spence, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Look at that. It's like a trip down memory lane where that's sort of how I remember my childhood. I think it's roughly the same era. And it's a sad reminder at what I'm calling it, the Wittgenstein's ladder that we have been climbing to an authoritarian, totally tyrannical type of reality, an Orwellian reality to which we have climbed. You go by steps and you don't really appreciate it as each step goes by, like the learning process. And then you just look back 20, 30 years. When police and community trusted one another, when people had a relationship with the police, when, at least by the looks of this one nostalgic video, old people tolerated young people. There wasn't this existential fear among citizens. There wasn't this unbridgeable political, ideological divide among citizens. But I want to coin that concept, the Wittgensteinian ladder. It used to be referred to as the steps of learning. You get to the next step, you kick away the ladder, you're on the next step. We have been going down a Wittgensteinian leveling up to absolute loss of freedom, to the point where we don't even understand what freedom was that we have sacrificed in the name of security, and security that is actually arguably not even there. So I don't like hierarchizing interviews, because each interview is special, unique in its own right. I have been looking forward to this since I first started listening to Dr. Malone, and admittedly, like I'm in the Wittgensteinian leveling up, not lawyering up, leveling up of knowledge, of information. I remember Dr. Malone saying things that I heard 2 years ago and simply not understanding what he was saying, and not understanding the importance and the importance, for lack of a better word, of what he was saying. I've leveled up now, and I understand now looking back, and I've got more questions. We're going to get into the discussion, and I hope I'm going to ask the questions that many of you out there have. We have a live chat running on Locals. Get your questions in there. Get your questions on the post. And we're going exclusive to Locals, I'd say in about 12 minutes after. We're going to do a bit of an intro. I'm not going to delve deep into the childhood of Dr. Malone, but I want to know who he is, where he's from, how he got to be where he is, and then we're going to get into the meat of it. Dr. Malone, get ready. Incoming in 3, 2, 1. Sir, how good? Do you prefer like this? I think this might be better. We get to see your diploma this way. I have a diploma, but I got my dogs up in the back. That was a courtesy of a sub.
This was at Peter McCullough's strong advice that I was really doing myself a disservice by not having the papers in the back. So we'll see how important that is.
Well, I now know, because I saw more of the backdrop than you're showing now. There's 6 diplomas back there, correct?
Yeah, and we still have to hang the patents, but that's...
We're going to get into all of that. I don't want to get into the credentials yet. Everybody knows who you are, 30,000 foot overview. So I'm going to skip that for the time being. I need to know, where are you from? What did your parents do? What was life like growing up? Just so I can understand how you got to be where you are now. And then after we get that intro out, I'm going to wind this up on YouTube, and we're going to have the discussion on Rumble.
So I was born in Palo Alto at the old Stanford Hospital in 1959. I just turned 63. And my dad was still a electrical engineer student, I believe, at the time. He had been in naval intelligence, stationed in Japan and came back and met my mother, who was from Eastern Oregon, from a farming family that had a large sheep ranch, sheep and wheat. And she was going to Mills Teachers College. So they met in the Bay Area. Dad was from Pensacola. And so this is the Deep South. And he came from a family that was long in banking and traces his roots back to early days in the United States through a notable great that was a captain in the CSA serving under Stonewall Jackson and Lee, who got shot up in the Battle of Richmond, which isn't too far from here where the farm is. So deep Southern roots on that side. And then on mom's side, farming that traced back to England in Eastern Oregon, which is also kind of a conservative area. And as I said, they met in the Bay Area. I was born in Palo Alto, and Dad went to work in the defense industry along California. California at the time in the 60s and 70s was really a major hub for all defense, particularly engineering. So he first went to work for Hiller Aircraft that was involved in a project to prove a new technology in Southeast Asia that we call the helicopter and helicopter gunship warfare now. So that was kind of how he started, and he spent his entire career moving up and down the West Coast. We'd move every 2 to 3 years, lived in Seattle. He did instrumentation for the 747 when it was being designed, and ended his career working in what's called a high energy systems, involving the technologies of electromagnetic surge protection, low inductance capacitors. So this is rapid discharge, high energy capacitors, and technology called exploding bridge wire and exploding foil, which is what they use for the very precise detonation of thermonuclear bombs. And the other major influence in my young life was my father-in-law, who was head of Special Projects Division at Raytheon, who had spent time during World War II in India and really was involved in the birth of radar, and then came back after the war and left the UK, migrated to Montreal, and then to the Los Angeles area, where he got involved with Stoddard Aircraft, did some of the early avionics for the SR-71, and then ended up in Goleta, as did my dad, where I spent the rest of my young life. Goleta is a kind of a middle-class suburb just north of Santa Barbara along the coast. So I grew up pedaling my bike across 101 to Pascal's Beach, the Pacific. That is now a huge resort called the Bacara, but back then it was oil land and tar on the sand and dead seals and just hanging out. And then I spent a lot of those teen years as a horse enthusiast, which is how I met my wife. She was 15. I was just barely turned 16. And we used to go riding all over the hills along the cow paths and stuff. You can't do that anymore either. And the oil company folks would let us ride along the cliffs and beaches along the coast because we weren't hippies by definition, because we were riding horses. So that was kind of a little slice of paradise. It just doesn't exist anymore. The house where I grew up in Goleta was about 4 miles as the crow flies from Ronald Reagan's ranch, just to give some context.
Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, it's fascinating, and probably not the only slice of paradise that is no longer left. All right, I'm going to end it now so that we won't have to get complicated in a second. Everyone head over to Rumble, which is where the conversation is going to be. I'm going to end it on YouTube and leave it up here just so people can migrate over, so we can actually have free and meaningful discourse. So ending on